My name's Chris. I work on this Autopatch thing. I've been doing it since it started around 3 years ago. I've been through kind of all the various iterations. And since, presentations should start with really obvious stuff, we update things in the IT world. It's what we do. It's something about security, CVEs, protecting devices from actually getting hacked, generally useful things. And it's a recurring task. The number of customers I've talked to who are essentially tired of doing on-premise patching, where they're every single month prepping stuff, pulling in the newest updates, setting it up, getting the right collection organized. Even if they've got it automated, it's never really automated. And they still need to actually do it because running the latest software actually is important. Cyber attacks are getting more sophisticated. AI is not helping with that, although that's more in the phishing space than in the update space. Delaying updates increases your security risk because once vulnerabilities are disclosed, people are working on reverse engineering them. They move really quickly in order to do that. And then each data breach is expensive. Sorry, I'm practicing a part of an Ignite talk track on you all because this is all content I'm sure you're very familiar with. So I appreciate you bearing with me. So what is Windows Autopatch? Autopatch is a cloud-based service that controls Windows Update so that you can get the content you want without needing to pull it into your on-premises servers. You can control which content is actually deployed to your device, and Autopatch is the only service in the world that can control Windows Update in terms of what content actually comes in, goes out, and is deployed. You can roll out updates safely by setting up update rings. You can essentially manage all of that in a dynamic way, or you can pin the ones you want. And you can track your patch compliance to let you see how up to date and secure you are. Also, all of those things should ideally save you time and money. At least that's my hypothesis. If people are like, we are way more expensive, I would love to talk to you and figure out why. So what's the story here? This whole presentation breaks down into really three parts. The first is what's the value that you get by using Autopatch and getting secure? The second is how do we keep your devices productive by rolling out content gradually and putting you in control of that gradual rollout? And then how do we actually free up IT staff as a part of all of this so that you all can work on more interesting things? So what's that look like? Getting secure. I've made the mistake of asking people if they love updates in these forums before, and a lot of people say yes. I can promise you from talking with my wife, the answer for most of the general public is no. And so that's where we're getting into security. There are tons of administrators that are tired of being on-prem. You hear me talk a lot about being on-prem and moving to the cloud today, because that's really what Autopatch is set up to help folks do. And it's a mature product. We have hundreds of millions of devices that are getting updated in this way every single month. Not hundreds of million, 100+ million, I apologize. But that is what we're looking at. It's not perfect. I will be the first person to admit it as the product owner. There's stuff we need to do. We can improve part of our driver story. There's our own treadmill we have around reporting where we're constantly trying to make that better. But it's a proven technology. There are loads of people using it. And I literally just had someone a couple minutes ago tell me how it's really helped them because we're doing feature updates really well. So that was honestly made my day. So thank you. So what are we actually talking about? The first big thing we see is 95% patch by your target compliance date. So Forrester went out and did a study on us, and they found that compared to other patching technologies, and by that they mean on-premise, so that's WSUS, ConfigMan, that on average, folks were 13 percentage points more patched by the same time each month when you're using cloud versus on-prem. That's huge. There are people out there who are phenomenal at on-prem and totally get it done every month. There are probably some of those folks who've done that in this room, but that's not the average. And so there's actually a lot you can do. So the part you see here is your target compliance date. Folks are probably politely thinking, what the heck does that mean? Well, it turns out that there are policies that you can set that say when updates should deploy, when deadlines kick in, and all that. And then what we do as Autopatch is we say for each device, let's look at that device's policy, and then come up with the date when it should be compliant. And then 95% of your devices will be updated by that date. That's the kind of promise of Autopatch. So you choose how fast you want to go, and we'll give you recommendations and all that, and I'll show you as part of Autopatch groups. But we make sure that the stuff actually gets done on the client. So from there, you don't need to just trust me. There are people like Bank of Queensland who actually did this, and they were able to reduce their time to patch by 80% and increase their overall patch compliance to 95% through a migration off on-prem to cloud. That is huge. It's a real sign of value, and they were able to do it quickly because they started out with a pilot project, tried it, and saw value. Then they expanded. So next, if you're already using the cloud, the question is, well, like, great, I'm already got this value. You don't need to sell me on it. What's next? This is where Autopatch comes in as an amazing security feature, because Autopatch is all about getting you secure faster and making sure that your devices are up to date as quickly as possible, and also reducing the cadence of your overall patch cycle. So look at this. We have real customers here, anonymized, but what they did was they were able to look at Autopatch, which is a full B-week security update. It applies as soon as it's installed. So they're no longer waiting 3-5 days for that reboot to kick in before the patch is applied. And then you don't get any signal until that patch is applied on if it's going to break anything. Since Autopatch is applied as soon as it's installed, you're able to actually move way faster because you get that signal faster. The whole feedback loop is tightened. And that's where the savings is on time here. Because these companies were able to realize that I get this signal faster, I'm able to tighten my schedule, and I'm secure way faster because the patch is applied as soon as it's installed. You're not waiting for the reboot. That's huge security value. And excuse me. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any points here, so thank you for bearing with me. Oh yeah, the last thing. On average, if you're using update rings today, I know from looking at aggregated anonymized data, the average customer has a deadline policy of 3 to 5 days. It's in kind of a bell curve around that number. You Autopatch, you're saving 3 to 5 days for each ring. That's huge. That's immediate value. It's easy to set up. You just need to meet the prereqs and everything else. So that's actually just a thing you can do today, and we'll actually go through a demo on that in a second. SAP loves it. They're kind enough to give us a wonderful quote about how it's really just sped things up. They haven't had any issues in rolling it out. Another case where you start with a pilot project, you roll it out, and then you go, oh, this is just better. And then you can start, pulling in dates from there. So now I'm going to show you what it actually takes to set it up. Let me just Alt-Tab and do this. Good, folks can see that. I'll actually go back here and show you exactly where to go. You just go create Windows Quality Update Policy, Northwest, GUG, example. Let's go with that. I'm good at typing. And all you need to do is nothing here. You just click next. And in assignments, I'm just going to add a group. I created a group called All Windows Devices. Just going to grab that. Next. Then I create. And now, as soon as these devices meet the prerequisites, they're going to start hot patching. It's as simple as that. So what are the prerequisites? That's where we're looking at VBS. It needs to be enabled. 24H2. If you're on ARM hardware, GP needs to be enabled. And I'm going to look at those two to make sure I haven't missed anything, because we have Naveen from the Autopatch team here and Gunny from the Autopatch team here, and they do amazing work. So is there anything else?
Really GP disabled.
GP disabled, yeah. So that's really the kind of value of Autopatch and how easy it is to go and realize that value. Honestly, super powerful stuff. So from there, let's talk about being safe and productive. So really, the first thing about safe and productive is, how do I make sure I can respond to incidents, have control over Windows Update? And so high level, this is the architecture. You have Windows Update, which gets all the content in. That's where vendors submit drivers. It's where Windows publishes all our content. And then Windows Update does this amazing thing where it talks to devices and says, this is those devices say, hey, this is the content that's applicable to me. So that's how we know which devices to hot patch or not, because they'd say, hey, I'm good to go on hot patch. We have the flag enabled in the cloud, and that sends it down. Windows Autopatch is the only surface that can tell Windows Update what to do. We essentially have a wrapper around it. There's a concept called approvals. And when you approve something, it says, yes, good to go to that device. Honestly, it's really pretty cool. We run into tons of scaling stuff because you can imagine how many approvals we're having to do if we're approving every single device across commercial. But it's really, really interesting in that way. So from there, what we get into is you have this combination of a comprehensive update catalog with your choice of controls, and then you can even apply strategies to those controls. So things like a quality update, you can say, I want to approve automatically. Things like a feature update, you may want to approve manually, so Windows Update doesn't just give you the latest version. That's really the power that you get with Autopatch. Moving forward from there, I apparently need to slide bug that. Some of my animation didn't work, but safe deployment practices. Start small, build out your rings, and deploy gradually, so that way when there is an issue, you can pause. That's one of the things we can do in that Autopatch service again. If a specific feature update's having a problem, remove the approval for all the other devices. If a quality update has an issue with 10B, remove the approval, those devices stop getting it. So this lets you balance speed, safety, and identify issues early. If there's an issue, you can pause or roll back. Those are features I'm hoping to make better over time, but they exist today. And so let's go through and show you what that actually looks like to set up. It's still there. Let's just go next tab. So here, what I've done is I've navigated tenant administration, scrolled down to Autopatch, and there's this thing called Autopatch groups. So you can go ahead and create all of your own policies if you want, and this will have the exact same effect. Like Autopatch groups, they do two things. The first is what you're going to see on this next page, which is you choose how many update rings you want. And I'm going to go ahead for dynamic distribution, and I'm assuming this is a small company, but I can talk about what to do if you're a big company. And I'm just going to say for my device distribution here, sorry, this screen is really tiny, so I apologize that I need to scroll and have it look like crap for a second here. Oh my God. There we go. And then I'm just going to say default distributions. And you can see it said I want to have 1% go up first, then 9%, 90%. You can select whatever percentages you want. But the point is it's going to monitor that all Windows devices group I created, and that's just a dynamic intro group that says I'm going to go pull all Windows non-server devices. And every hour it checks for the membership of that group, and then it distributes them so that they're nicely balanced as you specified between these. Then what we do in the background is go create intro groups for all of this. And then we move devices into the appropriate intro groups. I've seen a bunch of customers do stuff beyond just Autopatch groups with these intro groups we maintain to roll out policy or roll out other config as well. But broadly, that's what's happening with groups that you don't get if you do it yourself. From there, you choose what update types you want. For this example, just to keep things quick, I'm going to go with quality, feature updates, and drivers. Now you choose essentially what's the approval strategy. For this, I'm going to say Windows 11 24H2. The goal with this policy here is really to set the lowest version in your environment. There are other ways to go and actually do an upgrade and do an upgrade safely. This is just moving those devices into that manual approval mode, so they aren't going to get the automatic update from Windows Update. Quick question, go ahead.
Unsolicited feedback.
Sure.
That checkbox is evil. So I came across checking that box because I'm like, well, it makes sense. Let's put 22H2 on every device that can't take Windows 11.
Mm-hmm.
In your reporting, if you have that box checked, those devices are Windows 10 22H2 that Autopatch thinks it can't get to Windows 11 show up as compliant.
Oh yeah, they would show up as up to date. Yeah, that's very valid feedback.
It's a gotcha because with us, it's like, oh look, we're super compliant, and I'm like, no, those don't even have the right prereqs for Windows 11.
Yeah, okay. It's essentially they're saying they're as compliant as they can be right now, but no, I think you're spot on. And some of the things that we will talk about in the not crazy distant future is content-based reporting. So then you can look at the compliance associated with a specific piece of content. So I can't say exactly when we're going to talk about that, but yes, I think you can probably guess a little bit. But yeah, so that makes sense. And then driver updates, again, you can use same strategy, different strategy for each ring. And under the hood, what we're doing is we're just creating policies. We're automating that policy process, and we're actually using the currently logged in user's credentials to do so. From there, let's talk about presets. So you'll see this little drop down here. We've talked with the Windows Update client team and everyone else around like, what are the common scenarios that people have? Information workers, shared devices, kiosks, and billboards. And so if I do this, I'm going to go take this template and I've moved to a scheduled install and restart. And I can actually go ahead and edit these if I want to and look at a whole bunch of additional options in terms of how I can set this up. This is going to essentially set active hours for me on these devices, so that way they don't reboot during that time period, but they still become compliant. Say you go to reboot sensitive devices. Here we're going to choose settings that say I will only reboot any day at 3 a.m. And this lets you control the user experience, get the PhD in actually understanding all the policies. We've tried to do that for you and provide an experience. And then it's going to create one update ring for every single ring here. Beyond that, you can go ahead and totally customize. Oh, this is really bad on a tiny screen. Should talk to Deb about this. But you can go ahead and customize all of your deferrals, deadlines, and grace periods. And so when I was talking about target compliance date earlier, those are the policies that matter for that. Deferral says it's available in Windows Update. How long do I wait until it actually is released to this device? A deadline policy says once the content's on my device, how long until I force a reboot? And I'm going to give notifications to users along the way and all that sort of stuff. But that's where deadlines come in and become really important. And so that's what you're looking at there. From there, we also have this, and other thing with deadlines for quality update approvals, they're shared with drivers. Someday we will fix that. It is not today. Feature updates have the same thing with deferrals and deadlines. And so this again just leans into that target compliance date concept, so we can understand when a device is meant to get compliant. From there, scope tags, nothing crazy, and then it's just review and create. And so I believe we just called this one test. You can see it's not editable right now because we're actually doing a bunch of work in the background. But we're essentially, the service is off creating all the policies, creating the intro groups, creating everything else. You can actually manage all that. And don't worry, Naveen, this is not any part of your talk track for Ignite. So this is way longer than you want for that. Question, go ahead.
When you do that, like what you just did right there, can you do it in a way to just kind of see the groups it creates without actually doing it like a what if? Like I want to do this, but I don't know. I want to see kind of what it's going to do before it really starts doing.
Just grab an empty intro group. Okay. So create a assigned intro group, device group specifically, toss that in dynamic distribution, and then you can create whatever you want. It'll go create all the policies, and you'll have a 0 device getting scanned for dynamic distribution, and then it'll create all the policies, do everything else, and you can see what would happen. Okay. All the policy objects would be created in your environment. When you delete an Autopatch group, it does clean up everything. So that's how that works.
So to go under the devices in configuration, we'll see the policies.
Yeah, that's what I was about to show you.
Okay.
No, you're good. This is actually wonderful. You gave me a second for everything to buffer. So perfectly timed questions. Well, I was like, hey, let's go. So yeah, let's have a look. Hopefully this has all come together. Yeah, you can see it's nicely organized here under test.
Okay.
And these are named very blandly the Autopatch update policies. Autopatch group name was test, boring, I know, and then test ring 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can go ahead and look at these policies like you would any other update ring policy. All my values are right here. It's the exact same thing. Same with driver policies and everything else we're creating. You'll see it's all nicely nested, organized, all that sort of stuff in here. There's also this manage drivers for Autopatch groups button, which I wasn't going to talk about today, but it's cool, so I'm going to talk about it now, so I apologize. This lets you actually manage driver approvals across multiple policies. And you can approve for all policies, approve for individual policies, and this lets you stage a driver rollout if you're using manual approvals. People care a lot about this for things like other drivers, specifically firmware, when they're like, I'm scared of firmware because it can break things. And they want to roll it out in that ring-based way and not worry about not just use deferral. So I want to be extra cautious. So that's another thing you get with Autopatch groups. That's just kind of cool. Let me check the time here. Okay, I am behind, so I apologize. And I need to go back to my presentation. Hey, there we go. So reviewing and automating your patch process. What we just did, we set up a device group, which I actually did off screen, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to create and enter a device group. We set up dynamic distribution. We chose what content types we cared about. We chose an update schedule, selecting a preset if that matters, and then we're done. That's it. And because you're using a dynamic enter group, any new devices that come online, you can use that. If you have a large environment, which I would imagine a lot of you do, you can use things like autopilot group tags in your dynamic enter group to pick up devices as they go through autopilot, match them to the right Autopatch group, because you can have many of them. And then all of a sudden, you can have different patch strategies for accounting versus finance. And that's fully automated from the time the device enrolls in autopilot all the way through to ending up the devices in the actual update policies. So efficiency. We just talked, sorry, I meant to talk about Westpac. They're a great company, used to be my bank when I lived in Australia. You don't usually say that I like my bank, but that's how you go. Essentially, they found that their operational overhead moving from ConfigMan to Autopatch was about 10% of what it used to be because of those sorts of flows I just mentioned earlier, where you can automate the whole end-to-end. They're not chasing collections anymore. They're not pulling in content. They're not on that treadmill. So instead, they're just checking out the reports mostly. And that's a huge time savings. So we've already talked about patch compliance. We've talked about update inventories. We've talked about content approvals, release schedules, update. I haven't talked about update reporting. So let's talk about that. We have a single view for patch compliance. You'll notice this is lower than this over here. Windows quality updates is lower than the device Windows updates section above. But that is what it is. And the difference there is the Intune report that's included for Windows updates. That's just a really basic distribution report. It's higher latency and they have less features. The Autopatch reports are 4 hours client to cloud. So when you see a change on the client, 4 hours later, they'll be reflected in the Autopatch reports. They also track history. So you get up to 90 days of history in the Autopatch reports. And then we track compliance based on that target compliance date I mentioned earlier. So you get up to date, not up to date, or in progress. In progress meaning today's date is less than the target compliance date for that device. So it's still meant to be working. Once it passes that date, that's not up to date, or if it's on an even lower version. And that's how you can see the history over time. Beyond that, you can go into specific devices. And you'll see here I added a couple columns called client state and substate. That shows you what's actually happening on that specific device. We only get that if your telemetry is more than basic, but that'll tell you what's actually going on individual devices. So that's another thing. We also have the service state. So you can see, did Autopatch screw up? Did we not offer the content to that device? All of that's available in the optional columns in this report. So what's next for the service? I'm going to take a victory lap first and say we actually did a lot of things. We've one of the big ones this year is we have expanded our licensing. So
with education customer, I can finally use it.
Hey, honestly, this is the one I'm really proud of because I had to do this and it took a lot of fighting with finance and other people, but it is very worth it and it makes me really happy when people are happy about it. But yeah, we're available Business Premium, ASQ, and GCC very soon. So I screwed up on that slide. From there, we GA'd Autopatch, and we've seen millions and millions and millions of devices actually adopt it and use it now, which is so cool because I can see their numbers getting secure faster. It's amazing. We have faster reporting. I just alluded to that a second ago. We went from over 24-hour latency to less than 4 hours, and our P99 is actually around 2 hours. So 4 hours is our SLA, and we're sure we're not going to miss it, but 2 hours is closer to reality. Autopatch groups. We automate safe rollouts. And we've taken this was a feature for a while, but we made it a lot better and a lot more accessible. Before you had to give essentially full Intune admin permissions to the Autopatch service to do this. We re-architected everything so it works with least privilege and only works with the current user's permission level. So if you're not able to create policy, you can't create an Autopatch group. If you can't create an intro group, there we actually have a thing that will say, go get approval from someone who has that. And there's a whole flow around permissions with Autopatch groups now. And this gets into improved security. We've decreased our required service permissions massively. So there is no longer an enrollment process to use specific features of Autopatch. Before, reporting and Autopatch groups and a whole bunch of other stuff was hidden behind this enrollment process. Now it's just a feature you can use like anything else in Intune. It's really a big step forward. And we also added support for role-based access control. This has been one of those things where if you're a large corporation, you have hundreds of thousands of devices, almost everyone has some level of RBAC and scope tags and everything else, and that's all supported in Autopatch now. So what's coming next? Well, we're looking at improved content controls. So the last piece of the puzzle that we're finishing up is quality updates and .NET. So B releases, D releases, out-of-band updates, out-of-band non-security updates, .NET security, .NET non-security. All of that is coming very, very soon. And also being able to look at individual specific content associated with those update types. So this is like, hey, I want to see what's happening with my B releases in my environment, and getting some history associated with those B releases so you can see which ones are still out there. CV and KV reporting. One of the biggest things we hear from on-prem customers is they're like, so I used to report on KBs, and my CISO asks me about a specific CVE. So I need to do this dance now where I go from patch notes to build version to KB number, and then stitch that all together, work backwards, generate a custom report, and do that. We're going to build a report that says, here's the CVE, here's how many devices are unpatched, done. And then be able to click in, see which devices, all that sort of stuff. Driver management. There's the biggest thing we hear here is understanding before I hit deploy, tell me exactly which devices are going to get it. Don't tell me it's 57 devices. I need to know which 57 devices. I need to understand essentially the overall deployment of this driver and then see the reporting over time. That's one of the big areas we're looking into. Maintenance windows. This is another one where we've heard very clear feedback from the folks on-prem, where they're like, I have this capability today. What you have in the cloud today, what I just showed you for reboot sensitive devices, a lot of customers are like, that's insufficient. We want real maintenance windows to control download, install, and reboot time. So that is coming. And then lastly, a lot of customers are like, I love that you have reports. I never look in the console. I am an API first company. I build all my own stuff and I have my own custom reporting. Give me an endpoint. I want to pull out the stuff. I want to create policies programmatically. So we are working on a full V1 Graph API for the Autopatch surface. And that is coming at some point soon. Can't say things too specifically here. So question.
So the maintenance windows,
Yeah.
you've got active hours.
Mhm.
My biggest beef with active hours is the company that I have to manage devices for
Yep.
is active from like 4 in the morning until 1 in the morning.
Yep.
3 hours that I have where I can basically get away with doing stuff and a tree falls in the woods and it doesn't make noise, no one hears about it.
Mhm.
Active hours doesn't let you go that long.
Yes. And so this is honestly feedback we've heard from lots of people.
Yeah.
It's one of the challenges with active hours generally.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, I just can only say I agree. But yeah, that is one of the, you will be able to more tightly narrow in what you can accomplish with maintenance windows.
So does maintenance windows supersede active hours?
Yes.
That
Mhm.
seems obvious.
No, it's a very valid question.
So I mean, I guess my thing is like, I've gotten used to active hours because I've been using Autopatch for a while. So
Yeah.
I kind of play the game of, well, if I set active hours so that they end at like 1 in the morning
Mhm.
and then it doesn't start until like 8 in the morning, even though that would totally screw me over. I just kind of count on it happening at 1 in the morning when
Mhm.
active hours first comes to an end.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like you could get away without maintenance windows if you just made it so active hours could be like 21 hours in a day.
So you're right, but there are specific cases that will shoot customers in the foot. So say they've got a hospital machine, active hours are insufficient because there
Right.
could be something like a deadline policy that overwrites the active hours and still forces a reboot outside of the active hours.
Yeah.
And so it's that determinism that when we're working with very specific customers that is really needed, and there's kind of a guarantee that's needed with it, that's where active hours falls apart. But there is no need to use maintenance windows if what you have works. This is another feature amongst many.
But I'd use
Yeah.
it. I just wish active hours to be 21 hours long.
Fair enough. All right, cool. So with that, I should add a question slide to this deck. But questions, and I have, I think, done about 45 minutes of talking. So we have 15 for questions, which is roughly where I was shooting for. That sound good to people?
Yeah, you gotta have that.
Oh, wow, okay, I'm sorry.
Dance longer.
Well, then you guys can ask lots of questions.
Motivate a little bit left.
Okay, well, now I know.
No pressure.
Yeah, but that's okay. We can fill it in.
Yeah, anyways, would folks like to chat about updates? Please go ahead.
One of the problems I've had in the past was I had a driver that came through Windows Update
Mhm.
that was causing SNP conditions, like
Yep.
literally causing blue screens. And with Autopatch, is it going to, because like they're all Intune managed devices, all the blue
Mm-hmm.
screens were being bubbled up into Intune, but still it wasn't getting to anybody to actually pull the driver, or
Mhm.
something. So will that somehow coalesce better under Autopatch that information, because it's like, hey, we just deployed the driver. Hey, look, now blue screening. Every device is doing this. Oh, that's bad. Let's,
Mhm.
because I literally had to manually roll it back because I couldn't get anyone to care enough to like remove it from Windows Update because and it wasn't just my fleet of devices. It was like across Dell, Lenovo, because it was the same driver being used
Yeah.
across like multiple OEMs. And it was just a crisis for months.
No, that seems like a totally reasonable scenario. What you get with Autopatch today is the ability to say, I want to decline that driver.
Okay,
And so you can decline it for your fleet and say, I want none of that anywhere in my fleet.
okay.
We don't do proactive monitoring. We don't have that sort of capability yet. I think, frankly, it'd be really cool if I did, and if I could sit here and like look at you credibly and be like, yeah, we do that, but no, it'd be a lie. We give you the capability to say, when something is there, you can go in to the driver inventory, be like, that driver, I want to kill it, and then you can take it out of your essentially deployment. So for any device that's in a driver policy, then you would actually be able to remove it.
So when you remove it, does it roll it back?
No. So driver rollback is a really thorny, gnarly topic. Right now, it's not we have rollback for quality updates. We have rollback for feature updates for a period of time. And driver rollback is unfortunately still the Wild West and is a thing that is scripted and done manually.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
you can prevent it from getting worse.
Yes.
But you can't necessarily fix the existing problem.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you push it on a level set, and I'll be straight with you. Like,
Right.
it's one of those things that we'd love to go do, but I don't have a solution for today.
Was it you that did the session that's a year or two ago that talked about how drivers had?
No, that wasn't really, but it's
So-
story or Brian.
So jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
like the process of OEM submitting drivers into Windows Update itself
Mhm.
to then get consumed and pushed out by Autopatch. Doesn't it actually look at the count of failures if it detects failures? So it does that slow roll.
Yeah, so
So that's
yeah, what you're getting at
Yeah.
is there are different channels for different drivers.
Right.
And so what there is OEMs submit a driver to the Windows Hardware Quality Lab, WHQL, and WHQL does their own internal test pass. And they go, cool, that takes me about 5 days, run on a whole bunch of different hardware. If something blows up, they kick it back to the vendor. Then it gets released slowly over 45 days through the whole consumer population. Because the assumption is that there's a lot of devices there, we detect blue screens, all that sort of stuff. And if there's something bad that happens in the consumer population, then it gets kicked back again to the OEM. Then after that, it gets added to what's called the recommended drivers tab. And so I'll just go over to a driver policy so you all can see what's going on. And so you can see there's this recommended versus other drivers. The recommended driver has actually gone through that whole 45-day process I just talked about, and it's passed. It said, yes, we did not detect regressions, doesn't mean it's perfect, but it means that it's been vetted. Then there are other drivers. And other drivers are not deployed automatically. These are the ones that an OEM submits and is like, I don't want to go through that. I want to get this in your catalog today. And so this is the OEM has something they really want to push out. And it's not the recommended version for everyone. But often they'll push something here first, and then they may push it as a recommended driver later. And this gives you the option to deploy things more quickly, but without that WCL validation. So that's the difference between recommended versus.
Would you like to be part of our testing program?
Yeah, like that's why we don't approve the other drivers are always a manual approval rather than an automatic approval. So it's an opt-in, you do what you want, all that sort of stuff.
The recommended drivers, the reason I mentioned that is the recommended drivers are getting into some really deep shit. And when you get into that really deep shit, you get to really high level of confidence in that driver.
Yeah.
So like if I'm pushing out recommended drivers, firmware, all that, knock on wood, I'm probably not gonna see issues because it's already gotten out there. And Microsoft has all that data that's collected. And I say shit, I'm not saying the word for poo, I'm saying the word for computer hardware identifier.
Yeah.
Because you're getting into some really, really deep stuff where it's, knock on wood, this is probably the best that Microsoft does at any quality control.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to grenade their own operating system.
There's a related question in the
Oh,
chat.
please.
Can we ensure drivers are only drivers and not a vendor software support tool? Is this controlled by the hardware vendor? I'm a good one to ask that question, right? Yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, that's the case, but
Extension drivers.
sorry?
Extension drivers.
Oh, extension drivers. Okay. I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually fully know the answer to that then. So Katie, I see you're in the back. Are you familiar with extension drivers and what's going on there or? Okay, then honestly, I am not 100% familiar with extension drivers, so I can't answer that in a sensible way, but Stephen, you came up with the words very quickly. If you want to jump in, feel free.
So the thing with extension drivers is how it was explained to me is they're being misused. Is the simple answer. So they're supposed to be there just to have rapid, I need to fix this, or in the case of we all may remember the Dell Audio Max pack that you had to install to be able to use the 3.5mm jacks, right? This was a whole thing where it didn't belong in the driver set, but it got pushed across into extension drivers. And that's what it was there for originally, but now it's been used for that. Now it's causing problems. But unfortunately, how the drivers work, you do need to have some vendor applications for that. But
Kind of a back channel to get
yes,
what some people might consider bloatware and unnecessary parts of the driver, right?
so it's basically because of how the drivers are being split up.
What was it, HP used it recently and they accidentally deleted a new cert with one E in the something?
I saw something on that, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oops.
Thank you, Stephen.
There's another question in the chat. I don't know if I can do it justice. I'll try to read it. With the feature update policy set, can I upgrade a test ring only to something higher? For example, I'm with the test ring on 25H2, or will I have to disable the policy in Autopatch first?
Okay, I'm gonna
You might
try
have to
and
read it.
read that question back. I'm actually gonna go to chat to see it,
Yeah.
so I apologize for going offline here for a second.
It's a couple up there.
With the
AH.
feature update policy, can I upgrade a test ring to only to something higher? No, you can totally. I'll show you exactly how to do that. So let's go back to feature updates. And so if you want to just move an individual set of devices, you can create a feature update policy. It's just a single policy, test feature update policy, GUG. And I want to move to 25H2. So make it available as required, all this sort of stuff looks good. And then in my assignments, I can grab the, we made the auto patch test earlier. This is why I should have used a more, a better test group, modern workplace. I'll just grab this group pretend it's from the Autopatch group we made earlier. And I'm gonna remove the UK. There you go. And so then I create this. This policy would go ahead and actually upgrade just that test string. And it's totally fine to push out an individual feature update policy. I suspect the reason they're asking this question is that we have another feature, which is called multi-phase update release. This is when you actually want to go across and set up a feature update across all your policies. Let's go multi-phase SCUG policy. And here I'll choose my version for 25H2. And you'll see there are a lot of the same update options as in Windows Update. I'm going to grab this test group I just created, and you can choose multiple Autopatch groups if you want. And it just says, I'm going to go create these things called phases. And what a phase means is I'm going to create one new feature update policy. I can go next, ignore the gradual rollout angry text, but it says, I'm going to roll this out gradually starting on a date. And then you choose that first group availability, last group availability, how far in between, how many groups, and we set up essentially a default rollout schedule. I believe it's 2 months for test, and then the next month afterwards. And I think we try to align it with a Tuesday. I could be wrong, but that's what's going on. And then in each phase, if you click on it, it'll tell you like which groups are actually going to get assigned. And so that's the entry groups. So let's take this case. We just wanted to upgrade the test string first and stop there. Do that with an individual feature update policy. Then if you're doing a multi-phase rollout, yes, we will create another feature update policy. It will be assigned to that group. The joy of policy conflicts with Autopatch is if the approval is already there, it's just going to still be approved. You can't double approve something. Having something assigned to 2 different policies doesn't matter. It's just going to take whatever the newest approval will win. So that's how I would answer that. Does that actually answer the question, or did I misunderstand it? So for whoever was asking online, looks like that was.
Saw a thumbs
Andrew.
up. So yeah, Andrew, let us know if that doesn't clarify, but hopefully you're good there.
And so then if I went, next and created all this stuff, then it would go ahead and actually create feature update policies for all of those, group them together in one of those nice little carrots and all that sort of stuff. Back to the chat for more questions.
I got one. How does any automated pausing or rollbacks work if you start getting failures in your ring?
So we don't have automated pausing and rollback.
There's nothing, if we start seeing an increase in blue screens or other errors, it won't automatically pause that ring. We still have to go manually.
Yeah, it's essentially Autopatch provides the control, but the monitoring and the action taking is still totally on y'all.
But presumably we could use the Graph API to all that data, monitor for
exactly, like you can
automatically
create that sort of stuff, and so like that's totally possible.
Yeah.
It's stuff that's like I wish I could go do, but I suspect that people would be much angrier at me if we didn't do work on drivers than and I showed up with an awesome blue screen monitoring thing. Like it's down to trade-offs. So that's where that comes from. I actually think there's a good question in here. It's kind of timely from Rudy Bankson in chat here around gradual rollout. So how many folks here actually are using the gradual rollout feature today? The reason I'm bringing this up is over the summer, we essentially published a blog about deprecation. And then according to our data, very, very few people actually used it. So this is a smoke test because we've also gotten a lot of commentary recently from folks about deprecation. And so I wanted to smoke test, are people actually using it? Are they not using it? Are they even aware of what it is? All that sort of stuff. I'll check online too to see if anyone had things in there.
How many people in the room use Autopatch?
Well, now that I know I can.
I mean, that's why no one else in the room uses gradual.
Okay.
So if you don't have gradual rollout and you just go with the multi-phase where you say go to this test ring, go to ring 1, ring 2, ring 3, ring 4, ring last, whatever. Is it still kind of throttling that? So it's not just like on the availability date, boom, everyone.
It is doing on the availability date it offers to everyone.
Yeah.
And then depending on when the client actually talks to the cloud, that's when the download starts. But yeah, essentially you would see a spike in downloads starting on that day.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming where you're going with that question, so correct me if I'm wrong here, is your network. You don't want to have 100,000 clients try and pull down everything through the same pipe on the same day. You'd rather split it into a more gradual way. Is that where that's coming from?
So both from a supportability standpoint and from a network standpoint,
Mhm.
I don't want to flood my network because it's number one way that I cause outages is I DOS ourselves. But from a supportability perspective, I went pretty out of box. I had 3 update rings.
Mhm.
I'm at like 1%. I mean, I tested them last year.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm at, my dynamic is at like 1990.
Yeah.
And I don't want 90% of my devices to all update
All
to
at
the
once,
next
yeah,
feature update all on Tuesday night.
that makes
Like
sense,
I
yeah.
trust you all, but if I break 1% of 10,000, that's a pretty big number to break all on the same day.
No, that makes sense.
So
I just ask a question.
Yeah.
The gradual rollout is to space out within a ring when it is deployed. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, so that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially you say how many days, here, I'll just open up and show
So
you.
if you have a 7-day window for ring 3, it's not going to try to deploy all of them on the first day. It's going to.
my ring 3 is like 9,000 devices.
Right.
And on my 9,000 devices, I had an availability date set of June 1st and a deadline date set of July 31st.
Right.
So every 60 days, every day, a gradual chunk of those devices would get deadline. And then I wouldn't grenade my network all at the same time. I wouldn't grenade all the computers in the same place at the same time if some app on it doesn't like the next, the way that Windows looks at it, the next version. So I mean, for me, it was truly a reliability thing. And I don't know about everyone else, but like the biggest push that I have right now is not innovation. The biggest push is not automation. The biggest push is to just not break crap.
It's all about stability all the time, okay?
The gradual rollout feature is gone.
It's in the process of being deprecated. We're talking a bit more about it this afternoon. That's why I will not be here. But that's why I'm also very curious about what people think. So I'd love to have that conversation if you want to have that conversation.
I think, Chris, one thing, if I may.
Yeah, please.
chip in Here, it's slightly related, but for quality updates, and we've seen Chris talk before about the Autopatch ones, the payload is significantly reduced.
Yeah.
10 times less. So that network impact that you will typically see from a bunch of devices that start all talking to full simultaneously, you will see it reduce massively.
Yes, for quality updates.
Quality.
Yeah, for quality updates.
Well, I mean, even 25H2,
Mhm.
24H2 to 25H2 is like blink and it's done because it's
Yeah.
it's neat. Whatever you call it.
Enablement.
So, but yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is if there's some app that literally just doesn't like the next version of Windows, and I haven't found out about it
Mhm.
in my more cautious rounds, I don't want ring 3 to all of a sudden like stop.
To light up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So what's your alternate in that? Just create more rings, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
That's-
mean, my alternate is I made like 30 or 40 more rings instead of having 3.
Yeah. Just more overhead on your side.
And Autopatch works seamlessly with connected cache, right?
That is the DO solution for Autopatch. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely do not want to rebuild anything there.
I waited 5 years for connected cache.
Yeah,
I was on it in 2024, and then it just kind of disappeared for 5 years.
that's fair.
Clearly, we're doing our part to push for it.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna check chat again, see if there's anything here that people want to talk about, or if there are folks in the room that have other questions, feel free to let me know. I see one, given the approvals merge, is there a way to see that at the device level? So that's lazy admin asking a question. Yeah, it shows up in terms of the target version for a device in reporting using the devices report. So I go into reports, quality updates, reports, quality update status. You can see the target version as well as the current version in here, and that would tell you the net output of what's actually been approved by device.
This,
Yep. Oh,
Well, after you don't.
Yeah. So just hopefully that answers your question, lazy admin. Sweet. Please let me know if it doesn't. Katie, go ahead.
Meaning will be automatically holding and installed the device. That is our way of operating. What other ways do you use, or do you get those driver extensions? Do you get it directly through the OEMs? How do you do it?
If you have the answer,
Yeah,
because extension drives come still, so they don't actually come through the loop. But
but it is released, but it's still released. The
Yeah,
hardware
so-
doesn't-
we get a driver. The extension driver. So customers at the store. Get the extension driver. They go and put it in the-
So it's really, project assembly, page, the regular driver update, and the translate or anything that's it. It's going to be the regular driver, it could be in the other project.
Yeah.
Of the extension, we have the directly related server update, and then it will be your recommended if you need a copy of it. And you're saying it goes to the store.
Yes.
It's not regular driver.
Yeah, extension drivers come by the store.
What is the problem?
Customers go to the store. They don't have control if there's a broken
Yeah.
extension driver. Extension drivers don't always change the version number that they land on the device. It's basically, there's less control in place with extension drivers.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But yeah, I was gonna say, another question for the room about drivers, this is a thing I've heard a bunch, and I'd love to just pick everyone's brain on, is specific, like we've talked about approvals, right? And right now, we say drivers are either automatically or manually approved. A thing I hear somewhat frequently, and I want to test in this room as well, is having different approval strategies for different types of drivers. So I want my firmware to be manual, but my audio drivers to be automatic. And I want my network driver to be manual because that's going to cause flickers or those sorts of things. Where does that fit on kind of your wish list in the driver's world relative to other things?
Low.
Sorry, low?
Low.
Really? Okay, cool.
I mean, if you go back to the whole vetting process and stuff. If I'm getting it, it should be well vetted. If I'm getting it, it should be happening when I'm not using it.
Mhm.
Who cares?
Fair enough.
I-
I guess my only pushback on that is maybe network drivers, because if you deploy a bad network driver, that machine
Mhm.
just disappeared and will never be remotely managed again. Yeah, because you just knocked it from the network and it no longer has a way to phone help.
Yeah.
You know,
The other thing I hear on network drivers is that some of them can cause an actual network drop during the reinstall process.
Yes.
And so when you're on a Teams call, I have definitely never experienced this myself. When you're on a Teams call, all of a sudden you lose connectivity for a minute and a half. And you're like, what the hell just happened? That sort of experience. So being able to control more about when specific types of drivers are installed is a thing we've heard. That's one of the reasons maintenance windows are popular in terms of an idea. But there's other ideas we have as well. So, but I don't want to, bias the room too much.
But again, it's
Mhm.
active hours.
Yeah.
If you're not getting the updates, the only reason that I ever see myself getting a network driver update at 10:30 AM on Tuesday is because my computer hasn't been on in 3 weeks because
Yeah.
it was the other one that I don't normally use that sat on a corner of my desk.
Yeah.
Normally, you're gonna get that in the middle of the night
Mhm.
and you're not gonna notice it. That's why I say low.
Let it flow. Yeah, no, that is.
And I don't have time to test all those.
Mhm.
Like, just do a slower driver update policy where your driver updates are maybe going out over like 30, 60, 90 if you don't necessarily care that much.
Fair enough.
Because if you do that, who cares?
So I'd be curious to understand. That's a great scenario with devices, desktops and things on outside active hours. But what are you seeing for your end users that are traveling that don't have their computers on outside active hours? Is there any controls that we should have in that space?
I mean, they get prompted.
Not driving installs.
Eventually, they're gonna hit the compliance about that date anyway.
Yeah.
saying either you click the button that says install now, or we will do it for you in a couple days.
The only people in my work that travel that much are like 10 or 20 people into C-suite.
Yeah.
So I care about them a lot, and I hope it doesn't happen to them, but my odds are pretty low, so.
Mhm.
How,
What about everybody else? Like, what's your thought processes around that? Is there, how we install the devices on the device, should we keep?
Well, so I'll give you my, I work in a school, so there's the, students who use the device during the school day, and sometimes they don't plug them in or power them on outside of the school day, and so, and it's not the cart scenario where they're plugged in overnight. I'm just talking about a kid who has it in their backpack and just never charges it except when they're in class, when they're not supposed to be charging it. So when they, finally plug in their power, goes, hey, okay, we're gonna do everything right now, but I don't, problem is I also don't have a solution to that, because if you have to install the update at some point, but if the only time you're like plug in the power, which is, kind of one of the things.
The requirements,
What it wants, then it goes, okay, this is my chance. I've been waiting 2 weeks to get plugged into power, I don't care, I'm not idle. So, yeah, it's definitely a problem, but I don't ever do it. I mean, I tell the kids are supposed to charge their laptops overnight, and in theory, if they're plugged in, they'll wake up, at 2 a.m., do their thing, go back to sleep. But, whether they do that or not is
I mean,
It's
honestly,
the training on end user responsibility.
Yeah.
Our company is 99% remote.
Right.
So we're like, almost everybody is in that boat, where they have a remote laptop, they're working from home. So our stance is that we have ring testers. By day 3 of their ring, if you haven't hit the button that says go ahead and install, it's just gonna install.
Yes.
It's actually installing when they turn the machine on. It's just not rebooting.
right.
So either they're going to reboot when they're done and it's compliant, or they leave their machine on for 3 days and then it reboots.
Or they install hot patches.
Yes. I mean, we have the same issue with ConfigMan, because in ConfigMan, you have your ADR that does your updates. And then you say, hey, pay attention to my maintenance windows. But eventually you had to go back and change those software update groups to say, I don't care, just do it anyways, because otherwise some devices would never get updated.
Yeah, so
Question on feature updates.
Yeah.
If you have a feature update policy
Mhm.
and a feature update multi-phase policy.
Yeah.
Both assigned to the same device. How does Autopatch handle conflict?
So it's actually, you just have 2 feature update policies.
Okay.
Because of all a multi-phase does is it creates multiple feature update policies. It lets you see the whole rollout schedule all together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all we're doing is creating 6 feature update policies. And the way feature update to feature update policy conflicts are handled is whichever the higher version is, that's the one that's approved for the device.
So if I did a policy for all of my test devices, just as an individual, like feature update policy, but
Yeah.
put it against that test ring.
Yep.
And then a few weeks later, I do another policy, I do a multi-phase that goes out to all my rings.
Then nothing happens to your test devices because they're already updated.
Say they weren't.
If they weren't updated, then they would start updating.
Would it go with the tightest deadline policy, or would it go with the newest policy?
So the deadline policy is configured as part of the update ring.
Yep.
And so that policy doesn't change, and it's set based on when the offer happens. So the essentially formula you can think about is there's offer date
Yep.
plus deferral days plus deadline.
Yep.
And so the first date that device is offered is the offer date, and that's when your deferral and deadline kick in.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers your question.
So it handles conflict well.
Yeah.
Unlike other big snake chain that handle conflict like next.
Rob's right there.
fine, I wasn't listening.
65,000.
Conflict.
I think the 65,000 applies to.
Whatever it is.
I was gonna with the bride for a second, but.
That's the amount you need
I would
to
also-
fix conflict resolution to
I would
issue.
also give you 65,000 to fix conflict resolution. I think we could do a GoFundMe for that.
All right, cool. Well, now I have actually finished my allotted time. So
Yeah.
thank you for having a spirited conversation and for letting me ramble for half an hour at you. Hopefully it was informative and that people got something out of this. I'm around all day, so if y'all want to talk to me about update stuff, I love it. If you want to talk to other people about update stuff, we have a whole bunch of really cool people in the back there. We have 2 hot patchers. We have Gunny Michelle. We have Surby, who's worked on a whole bunch of different areas of the product. So I don't know how I would like put you in a nice little neat box other than to say she does updates. Akash has done feature update stuff. He's done reporting stuff. He's done all that sort of stuff. Katie is our current drivers expert. She's worked on the Win365 portion of the product. She's also worked with MS Digital, has a whole bunch of stuff there. Harmon, you're similar box to Surby. You're tricky. Does update things. I'm going to go with that because I don't kill too much time on it. But all really smart, lovely people, and there are a bunch of others from the cat team that you know and love. So yeah, come talk to us. Sorry? No, you're not. You're a WCE, but you're a cat in my heart for always. That's how I knew you first. All right.
All right, thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
folks. I really appreciate